Hello, welcome to another video. This one is going to be an extension of my healthcare one, so part 2 basically. This one though is going to be my experience personally with Canadian healthcare. So, when I was 13, I was diagnosed with scoliosis. Now, in the first place, my family doctor nor my school that I was going to at the time caught it. Schools do regular checks for various different things, including scoliosis, because it's a very highly detectable condition. Yeah, it's not that hard to notice if it's progressed to a certain point. Obviously it varies with each person, but when it gets to a certain point, it's really not that hard to tell. And if you do the certain tests there are to do, it's really not that hard to tell. So just as a side note, my school at the time and my family doctor did not notice whatsoever. When I was bending over to pick something up at my house, when I was at home, just on a random day when I was 13, my mom noticed, because when I was bending over, my one shoulder blade, it looked higher than my other one. It was more pronounced, which obviously isn't normal. It was supposed to be level and symmetrical to each other. So, and we had no idea what scoliosis even was. We didn't know what it was. She didn't know what it was when she saw it. She just knew that it didn't look normal, and we got checked out, which turned into this whole thing. So, good job, Mom. So, when I was diagnosed, or when I went to my family doctor, I'll say, to get checked out in the first place to see what it was, I was referred to a specialist. I'm just not sure. I believe he was, at the time, a scoliosis specialist for adolescents. I believe that's what he was at the time. Right now, he's not specialized in scoliosis, I don't believe, anymore. I mean, he obviously still knows the stuff, but I don't think he carries his profession into that area anymore. He's more sports injuries related to the spine. But anywho, I was referred to him at the time because of how bad it was in the first place. I was immediately recommended to try the Boston brace or to get surgery. Obviously, we didn't want to go straight for surgery, and there was still some time to hope that it corrected itself, or at least stopped getting worse than it could get. At the time of shortly after the time that I started seeing the specialist. Both of my curves were over 40 degrees. Now, you can have a single curve, or you can have a double curve. I'm pretty sure you can have a triple curve. So a single curve would be like a C, so it would be this way or the other way. Scoliosis is a curvature of the spine from left to right. And you can have multiple curves, or you can have a single curve. Mine was a double, so it was in the shape of an S. So it started over here, and it was over here, over here. It was like that. It was literally in the shape of an S. And each, like, that would be a curve, and then this would be a curve. And it depends how big your curve is, for how dramatic it looks. Scoliosis is actually quite common, just in general, among people. Although the curve generally isn't greater than 15 degrees for a single curve. And if you have a curve that's no greater than 15 degrees, it's not terrible. It's not going to cause you much pain, if any at all. Your organs, your body, it won't really be affected too much. Tylenol will probably do the trick for any pain you would be in. Yeah, you might have a little hump or something on your back somewhere, depending on where exactly the curvature was. But that's about it. Anything greater than 15 degrees is, you should be looking into it. Not necessarily that it's going to be bad, but you should at least be watching it. And I believe anything greater than 25 degrees is braceable or surgery worthy. So when I started seeing the specialist, and I have had 2 curves, and both were over 40 degrees. That's a big problem. So I was already a severe case from the get-go. So from the very beginning, I was given the option of surgery. And after not wanting to go straight for surgery, but trying the Boston brace, that didn't work, didn't do anything, but that was my choice to try it. I was strongly suggested and pressured into getting the surgery. My surgeon, who happened to be the specialist that I was seeing, said that I would be fused from essentially my lower back just above my tailbone. So it's essentially my tailbone because it's not much higher than that. All the way up to between my shoulder blades. The entire way up, I would be fused. So, which meant that after surgery and the remainder of my life after the surgery, I would not be able to bend my spine, my back, at all. I would bend my body at my hips, because that's not bending your spine, it's bending yourself in half your hips, right? So, that's what I was told. I was told that he was, what's the correct word for that? He was treating, whatever, 2 twins at that time. They were both ahead of me though, so they had both already had their surgeries, but he was still seeing them as checkups for post-op. And that he told me that both of them had curves around my severity level. He can't obviously tell me what degree or whatever, because that would be too personal. But he did say that they were around my level, and they went on to become professional gymnasts for the Olympics. So, there's that. He didn't really say too much else, other than obviously it would help. He didn't say that it would correct the curves that had already been caused up until that point. But he did say that I wouldn't get any worse. Too much worse. I believe your skeleton continues to grow until you're 25. I could be wrong on that. He did say that I will continually get worse throughout my entire life, just because of the gravity of my spine and my skeleton, as long as it continues to grow. And then from there on after, it'll just be gravity working. But he didn't say it would get worse over the years to the point where it would really matter. It would be very gradual and not really noticeable. Now, at that time, I was about between 13 and 14 when I was more strongly considering surgery as a treatment option. I was not whatsoever interested in relationships, boys, girls, whatever. I didn't care about that stuff yet. So when I strongly insisted that I would never have kids or be in a relationship or anything, I don't know why he didn't address that anyways, just as a this is what you're looking at kind of thing, just so you know. I don't know. I think he should have. Like, I was a child. So he never told me the complications that would arise with a pregnancy. Never even talked about it, even for a couple seconds. Never. So I never thought it was an issue. And at that point, I was never interested in it. So I wasn't about to ask. So I wasn't thinking about it. Wasn't on a 14-year-old's brain. So, when I was 15, I finally decided to get the surgery. Or, when I was 14. When I was 15, I had the surgery. So when I was 14, roughly around 14, I decided to go ahead with the surgery. I decided to go ahead with the surgery. Took about a year to get the surgery. Just because I guess they were busy. I don't know. Maybe there was a long wait list. I don't remember why, but it took almost a year, roughly a year, to get it. And at that point, one of my curves was upwards of 50 degrees. I believe it was higher than that, but it was at least 50. And my other curve was around 80 degrees. Now, for context, remember, anything above 15 is worthy of paying attention to, and anything above 25 is do something about it, get checked out. Anything above 40 actually is you should be doing something other than a brace, because if you're above 40, a brace will most likely not do anything for you. And 100 degrees is severe. Like, highly severe. I'm not sure I even know of too many cases in the world that are above 100 degrees for a single curve. I don't even know if there are any for a double curve. I'm sure there could be. I've just never heard of them. But anyway. I was on my period when surgery day came along. So I went in with period. I was 15, obviously, at the time, and not that experienced with stuff, so I was a pad girl at that point. The nurse that was initially watching me after surgery was very bothered by it. I don't even know what the right word would be. Inconvenienced, nasty, rude, whatever. She did not like the fact that I was on my period. Yeah, I don't know why, but she had an issue. She would yell at me. She did curse a few times. Yeah, she was not nice. She would grumble and make comments and stuff about it at me and to me. And this is all while, like, right after I get out of surgery, so my mom hasn't even seen me yet. So that's a great way to get out of a surgery. It was an 8-hour surgery, and I was in the hospital for 7 days, aside from surgery. So if you count the surgery, it would have been like 7.5 to 8 days. From what they say, it went smoothly. They could not correct my curves completely, like, as in make my spine straight again completely, because of how far gone it was. It would just been too much pressure to position my spine to where it should be without breaking it, so they couldn't do that. I'm not sure, I don't remember what my curves were post-surgery. Still waiting on those x-rays actually to come back from the hospital. How many years later? So I was released after those 7 days with 1 bottle of morphine, liquid morphine, and a bottle of Oxy. The pill form, obviously. At the beginning, it didn't do so much. It was awful. I was in so much pain. You don't know pain, aside from childbirth, until you go and experience an intense surgery like that. It's crazy. So, I was on bed rest for about 6 weeks after being in the hospital for those 7 days. So after that, I'm gonna say it was the end of the 6 weeks when those 2 medication bottles started to not really be effective anymore. Yeah. So I just switched to regular Tylenol because I wasn't going to take heavy-duty drugs, addictive too, when they weren't really doing anything anymore. So switched off of them. I was going for regular appointments for a little bit after the surgery, just to make sure everything was good, and yeah, there's not really much else to do after you have a surgery, so it was essentially just to make sure everything was good, I was healthy, relatively, no infections, nothing was broken, whatever. My body didn't reject it. After a while, though, it got to be redundant because it was about an hour drive and for nothing because everything was going good. So I decided not to go anymore. And just to kind of play it by ear, and if I felt like something was off or I had a question or needed help or whatever, I would make an appointment and go back. But nothing ever came up, which is a good thing. Until I got pregnant. It was a little bit after I initially found out that I got pregnant that it actually started to be an issue. I'm gonna say around the 4 to 5 month mark of my pregnancy, it started to be an issue. So I didn't know anything about scoliosis in pregnancy before I got pregnant because I didn't know it was affected at all because no one told me, and yeah. So when I started experiencing more pain, well, pain in general, but pain that wasn't pregnancy related, I started researching it myself, how scoliosis can be affected by pregnancy. And I discovered that it can be very bad. It depends by person, obviously, and by case, whatever, of both pregnancy and your scoliosis, how it'll be affected. It can either not really be affected much at all, or it can be very, very, very bad. So, I was expecting for a more complicated life after I gave birth, but I was hoping for not terrible. But I was expecting it to be pretty rocky. So mind you, the entire time before I got pregnant, I was not in much pain at all. After recovery from the surgery, obviously. Just day-to-day life, I wasn't in too much pain. Yeah. It would come up the odd time where it would hurt, but nothing unbearable and nothing bad. So, I had it pretty good. It all happened after my pregnancy. Part 2 will come shortly, because I am running out of space on this video. So, part 2